Aloha, everyone. This is Sommer with Scott and the Scott and Carolyn show. And we are here basically to represent the Sommer's Health and Wellness Center here in Rockland. And this is our podcast. And so we are grateful to be able to share with you our first introduction podcast episode. And we are here basically to inspire people to live the abundant life. And so welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you.
All right.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's just so great that we can do this together.
Yep.
We really, of course, we are married, and we really run the Sommer's Health and Wellness Center, which I'm grateful that Carolyn, works with the staff, and I'm a practitioner in the back. And we both have a lot to share with everyone regarding health and wellness and the tips that we've learned over the years, the habits, the experience personally and clinically. And so we're just going to start kind of with our story. And I would say that, do you want to start your story?
No, I'll let you start.
All right. Hey, that's great. So I'll just start my story. So my story basically began as a child. You know, my dad was basically a bodybuilder. And so he came over from Cleveland, Ohio when he was 19 to spend some time with his dad, his health was failing. That was my grandfather. And unfortunately, it was the grandfather that I never met because when my dad got to California from Cleveland, he spent some time with his dad, and he realized his dad was eating a very poor diet of pizza and Chinese food. And so unfortunately, the consequences of that diet led to a heart attack. My grandfather died of a heart attack one morning. Suddenly, my dad found him on the floor, if you can imagine. And the emotional event of that death of his father, my grandfather, Edwin, led to a change in my dad's thinking. And he thought to himself, I don't want to die that way. I don't want to die early in life. I want to have longevity. And I want to have vitality. I don't necessarily want to just get by in life, but I want to have the energy to be able to do the things I need to in life. So he realized he had to make a change in his habits, and that was to change his diet because pizza and Chinese food weren't going to work for vitality or longevity. And then he also realized that he had to stay fit, and that's why he got into bodybuilding. So he performed for Mr. Sacramento, and he did really well. And so then I was born. And then when I was born, about 1.5 years old, my parents realized I started to have seizures. And these seizures really started to take over my life. There was really no hope offered by my pediatrician. And to my parents, he said pretty much that I'd have this the rest of my life. And it wasn't until age 9 that I realized the seriousness of my disease. And I had a choice at that point. I could either really listen to the words of my pediatrician, which were, boy, if you don't change this, you will never have a normal life. And so those words resonated to me in my mind for a while. And they got me to a hopeless state of depression and sadness, thinking that there wasn't another way, until one day I said a prayer after being inspired of looking outside and seeing a tree. And I realized that there had to be something, because I really we believe that we were created to heal, and that there are things on the earth that are safe and natural to help us in that process. And that we've been given gifts by our Creator on the earth that will help us, overcome the challenges of our health that we may face throughout life to keep us healthy and vital and alive. And so at that moment, I said a prayer and prayed for the powers of Superman. And with this, the thought occurred to me is that I just need to have X-ray vision to be able to find the kryptonite in my brain and remove it so that I could be healthy and vital again. And at age 15, and then my second part of my prayer was that once I found the secret to health and longevity, that I would do the same for others. And I would help them find their path to health and wellness so they could leave a legacy. So at age 15, I went to check into a hospital to be retested for epilepsy, and I was tested free and clear of this disease. That was just a life-changing experience. What I realized that our prayers can be answered, and there are natural methods in which our bodies can heal. We don't have to rely on drugs and surgery all the time. Sometimes it may be necessary, but I know that the body can really heal. And so I realized looking back that it was really a ketogenic diet that my mom had given me, which was a lot of nuts, whole grains, high in magnesium, and high in fat, which is the solution, the natural solution to epilepsy. So moving forward, I realized that now I had to continue on the path of health and wellness. And so I studied chemistry and electrical engineering initially in college. Then I went on to study nutrition and biochemistry at Davis. And I realized that after an attempt to study as a pre-med student, I realized that it wasn't really the path for me, and that I would be just prescribing drugs and surgery and not really offering natural or safe solutions, that there would always be a risk. For every drug, there's a risk called a side effect. And for every surgery, there would be a lost organ or a scar, which would possibly inhibit the electrical system of the body. So I read a book at Davis, which inspired me, which totally changed my life. And it was on Asian medicine. And I realized that the ancient way considered food first. What are you eating? And that's what we're going to be talking about a lot in these podcasts. What food do you eat? And how do you feel when you eat that food? Because food is either healing and the power to heal, or it's poison. And we make the decision every day. It's a decision that we make every day, how we want to feel based on what we eat and how we live. And we just need to become more aware of that process. And so ultimately, I finished a degree, and by changing my degree at Davis to nutritional science, I received a degree to find out how to heal the body naturally with food. Then I went to Asian medicine in San Diego, and there I studied really the ancient ways of how herbs and medicine and acupuncture and the body's electric and natural healing can really heal the body safely and naturally. And then I went on to study kinesiology and other forms of natural medicine. And then after 20 years of practice, I can testify that the body really can heal. I see miracles each and every day in our practice. Together, Carolyn and I witness the miracle of food, the miracle of habits, and we also realize that people really have to have a purpose in life. And our purpose has become a way to inspire people to the best life possible, to live the abundant life. And the only way we can really do that is a special formula, or an equation, I call it, which is the abundant life equation. And that is, we have to live a certain way, we have to eat a certain way, and we can have joy in the process. We don't have to feel deprived. And so this is our story, is really that there is a way to live the abundant life safely and naturally.
That's right. That's true. And for myself, I was just the typical mom who really loved cooking for my children. I have 5 children, and during their upbringing, I was very into cooking and very into making bread and rolls and cinnamon rolls and casseroles and having 3 meals a day. And so ultimately, I gained the 20 pounds that most stay-at-home moms gain when they're at home, and they're not familiar with the healthy lifestyle. And so my passion was feeding my children and providing for them a home that smelled like homemade bread. And so after all of those years in 1999, I found myself in Kansas after a long road trip. We arrived in Kansas, and I started getting a lot of chest pain, and we had eaten fast food all the way to Kansas. And I really thought that I had a heart attack because the pain was so severe and I couldn't breathe. It was in the middle of the night, and it just terrified me. And so I woke up just terrified, thinking I really did have a heart attack that night. So I began grabbing the books that my mother-in-law had in her house on health, and I started reading about the different aspects of health and what was good for your heart. And I found that Q10 was good for your heart. So I ran to the health food store and bought some Q10, and I was just extremely motivated to figure out what to do. And at that point, I did a 3-day fast without food and water because I believe that the Lord told me to, because my body was so inundated with fast food from the trip. So that was the initial incident that spurred me to really start researching and educating myself on health. And from then, I learned a lot from those books on the blood and how it becomes sticky, and the red blood cells become clumped based upon the foods that we eat. And so in that book, which was called None of These Diseases, it's basically saying, you don't have to have all the diseases that are common in your culture. You can do something about it. There is a solution, and drinking water is one of those solutions. It thins the blood, enables it to flow faster. And so from then, from that week on, I was determined to drink a lot of water. And everybody that knows me knows that I drink a lot of water, and it's kind of a joke. But at the same time, it really did change my life. And I started drinking so much water, and I started really concentrating on my health, and I started dropping the weight, and I just became very aware of everything that I was eating simply because I was concerned about my health. And unfortunately, that's the story for a lot of people. They don't take health seriously until something happens. So they cover their ears and they don't want to know the truth until something happens. Something happens to their children, something happens to themselves, something happens to motivate them to change. And what I've learned over the last 20 years is that feeling fantastic is possible, and it's extremely satisfying. And so when Jesus said that you can have life and have it more abundantly, I believe that that's true. I believe that the more you adopt healthy habits and just concentrate on drinking a lot of water, the more energy you have, the better you feel when you look in the mirror, which is in itself motivating, right? Because many of us are weighed down with insecurities because of the way we look, myself included. And yet, when I do the right things, I feel better about myself, but I also have the energy to enjoy my grandchildren, to move fast, to exercise, and to enjoy what I do. And that is our passion here, is to help others and educate people on how to live the abundant life, how to feel fantastic, look fantastic, and be excited about life. And that's really my motivation, is not so much to live until I'm 100, because I believe that it's appointed unto man once to die and then the judgment. And so basically we're all have our appointment with death. And there's not much we can do about that. I mean, we can do the best we can while we're here in eating the right things, drinking a lot of water, exercising, and then feeling fantastic as much as we can. But, ultimately anybody could die tomorrow, an accidental death. So you can't really control when you live or die, but you can control how you feel while you're here.
Wow, what a story. That is so awesome. I love your story. Every time I hear it, it inspires me, about how you almost felt like you had a heart attack and stroke, and yet you were ready to make a change, looking for answers. And that's why we're here, really, once again, as Carolyn said, is to inspire others and to give answers and truth, the truth that we've found to be true. And what a great testimony of that.
Yeah. And also I forgot, that watching my parents that used to be so active become so crippled and frail that they were bent over, at 75 with walkers and had diabetes, heart failure, heart attacks. And it's like, I know that many people look at their parents the same way. And most of us, a lot of people think it's normal to have arthritis and to be crippled when you're 70, but it's not normal. And that was another motivating factor, was that I decided if I cannot be like that, if in my power, I can, pursue health so that I don't end up crippled at 70, then I'm going to do that, right? Because we are not victims of our parents. We don't have to end up like that.
Yes. In fact, I love what you just said, because a saying that we have in the clinic is, your DNA is not your destiny. And that's exactly right. And so, it reminds me of the why, which is the next part, to our story is of this podcast, is why be healthy. And I would say it reminds me of a story of a man that came to me in his 70s, probably about 71, 72. It was many years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And he was a grandfather. And his grandson came to him and he said, "Grandpa, I want to climb this mountain and I want to go on this hike. It's going to be a little bit treacherous. It's going to take some strength, endurance, vitality, and training." And his grandfather was so excited that his grandson had asked him to go on this trip. However, he did not prepare. Any entire part of his life was not prepared for health. What he did was he prepared for financial freedom, and he, prepared for riches. And so he had a lot of money, but he couldn't even make it to the mailbox to get the mail. So with that said, he really realized that his life was compromised because he hadn't planned for health. And so our question to you is, why be healthy? And for us, as Carolyn had mentioned, it's like, because we don't want to end up like some of our ancestors that we've seen that have suffered, or people around us, our friends or family. And I think it really comes down to be able to be available. Like if somebody calls you, a family member says, "Hey, can you come to my wedding? Or can you travel to Europe? And can we go on a trip together? And or grandson or grandchild or something, or can you come to my graduation?" And maybe we'd have to travel. And if we were decrepit and unable to move or walk, then it would limit our ability to spend time with our family, to crawl on the floor with our grandchildren, to climb a mountain, as this man had done. And by the way, the sad part of the story is that the man was so discouraged about his health that he never achieved that goal. And his grandson never was able to climb the mountain with his grandfather. And so I leave that story with you. And our story is that basically I believe that it really has to start with you. You have to set a goal as to why you want to be healthy. And I think that it really centers around family and friends, and being there for your family, being there at your grandchild's wedding. And you have to invest time and effort and habits into your health for many years to be able to prepare for the next decade of health, so that you can be there and be available. Health is not an accident. It's not something like you just wake up and you're 100 years old, or you're all of a sudden healthy. Health is actually a habit, a series of habits. And maybe you have something else you want to add about why we want to be healthy.
Well, there's so many reasons, right? A lot of people wake up when they're 50 and they're stiff in the morning. They have a hard time getting dressed. Why? Because they think that's normal. And they don't realize that it's not normal. And you can just avoid that feeling by not eating dairy or sugar, for example. So there are simple solutions to give you the energy to push your grandchildren on the swing, to enjoy the visit to the park, there's just so many reasons to feel great, right? Because when you don't feel good, you don't really want to go and do certain things. Bowling with your grandchildren, there's just so many things that are so great to do. And if you don't feel good and you feel stiff or you're in pain, all of those things create hindrances to enjoying life. And so that's what I love to teach people, is that, we're not really trying to control when you're going to die as much as, because a lot of people, I feel a lot of people criticize people that are into health and wellness because they say, you're all going to die. I mean, everybody's going to die. So why do all that? Why go vegan? Why not eat sugar? Well, okay. So the reason why is because I want to feel good, and I am so excited about telling others how they can feel good by just simple solutions, right? Not eating dairy because it causes inflammation in the joints. Not eating gluten because it causes inflammation in the joints. All these things cause inflammation and pain. And so if people knew that, then people would discover how great it is to just wake up in the morning and jump out of bed and feel great. And so to me, that's just exciting, because then people are happier. and then it's like, that's my motivation, really, is just, there's so many things that people want to do that they can't do simply because they're 50 and they're over the hill and now it's just downhill from here. But that's just not my perspective.
That is so true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely agree on that. It's just, it's true. It's like we're so much happier, when we have our health.
When we feel good.
And then we can do what we want. We're not limited, And then the other part, too, that I'd like to add is besides family and friends and doing things with people, I would say that, it's our career, too. Our ability to, support our family. I mean, like, think about your health. If you're disabled or have a disability, my grandfather went out on a disability when he was 45 because he had a bad spine. And then later on in life, my dad taught him how to grow food and how to exercise and how to drink water and take care of himself by growing food for his family. And then he lived well in his mid-90s. He lived a healthy, vital life. And it wasn't so much about how many years that he lived, but the last part of his life was really even better than the first part of his life because it really affected his health originally, affected his career and how long he could support his family with his career. So I'd say every part of our health affects us, whether it be our family, our friends, our grandkids, or even our career. And lastly is the last part of our life is to be able to retire or to travel, to be able to see our family and spend time with grandkids. I mean, travel takes health to be able to get on a plane, to be able to take a cruise. Even enjoyment like a cruise takes health. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're not going to enjoy a cruise very much in a wheelchair, when you can barely get on the ship.
Yeah. And also, like, think about it. Like, many people come to us and they are on disability because they're overweight and they have all of these problems that prevent them from working. Well, then as a man, the man is discouraged because he doesn't feel that he's a good provider for his family. So that is going to affect his marriage. And then the ripple effect is it affects the children and it affects so many people within the family, right? Just when one person doesn't feel good, like my mom, it's a ripple effect. And so imagine if we all felt great as much as we could, how that would affect our marriages, how that would affect our children, because one thing I have done is taught my children the benefits of drinking water, the benefits of not eating dairy, the benefits of not eating sugar. I mean, if we're teaching our children that, they're going to teach their children. And then you start a generation of people that are very aware of the things that are causing the most prominent diseases in our culture, like arthritis, like sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is actually a symptom of heart disease, right? So you got some clogged arteries, you're going to have sleep apnea. And then snoring is also, a symptom of inflammation in the sinuses. And so snoring divides spouses, right? It divides husband and wives. Coughing divides husband and wives. And all of these things are preventable if we just educate ourselves. So, that's the thing is education is key, because the more we know, the easier it is to change. If you don't know something, you're not going to be motivated to change. But if you know that a sleep apnea is actually heart disease, you're going to be motivated about finding out how to prevent or unclog your arteries so that the sleep apnea goes away. So these are things that we deal with every day in our clinic. And my own discovery of just how feeling better and being, losing weight has affected my own life and the lives of my children. And so I really think that's key, is that it affects marriages, it affects our children, and that really is our objective, is just to spread the message, right? I mean, there's a lot of information on the internet about health and wellness, but like what I don't hear a lot is what really motivates you. I mean, I see a lot of motivation books and success books and everything, but if you know your why, as Scott always says, then that's the beginning of changing and really focusing on the end result, right? So putting a picture on your fridge of your best self and being motivated.
I love that. That is so true. It's like, why would you take all the effort, make the effort to get healthy? And thank you. Those are awesome examples of why we should be healthy and how our disease affects and divides, our family, our career, everything. And so I have a story to share with that, and that is that an analogy is that if you went out to the mailbox to get a check, and there was a check in there, and the check was not monetary, but it was health. It was a check of health. Like, how would you spend that? Like, if you were given incredible energy, amazing sleep, amazing digestion, elimination, perfect body, like a beach body metabolism, and just clear mind, clear thinking, and just the ability to do whatever you wanted to with your body, how would you spend that check? How would you spend it? And I think that's where people should start. It's like, wow, well, if I was, 30 pounds lighter, I would definitely, take up cycling. Or I would, definitely take up kayaking with my children. And so it's like, well, why are you waiting? Why wait for something like that? And why let something like your health get in the way of your family or your career or your retirement? So that's why we're here. And that really leads us into the habits, because we really have assessed this for many years, and both of us have read many books on health and nutrition. And, we see, many, many people over the years in the clinic, and really what it comes down to is a habit, a routine. So it's like, it really doesn't happen, I use the analogy of a salad, right? It's like you could eat one salad and then somebody can come back to me and say, I ate the salad and nothing happened. It's just like, I didn't feel any different. So I'm giving up on salads. It's just not working, right? It's like, no, one salad is not going to fix this problem. No, you need to eat 10, 50, 100 salads to make a difference. So it's about momentum. These habits have to have momentum. They have to be daily habits, because if they're not daily, you'll forget them. And, one of our favorite habits first thing in the morning is really hot lemon water. We've just always do that for a long time, and it cleans out your liver. It gives you energy. It gives you vitamin C, boosts your immune system. it's amazing what a habit like that will do. But people think about that habit. I talk to patients, all day long about that habit. But then there's only a certain percentage of people that will actually do the habit. So you have to really take the time to master one habit at a time. And I think that that's the key. If you get anything out of this today, besides our story, our desire to help people, it would really that if you just master one habit at a time.
Yeah.
And then once you master that habit, then it's like a juggler throwing one ball in the air. Don't throw another ball in the air until that first one is completely balanced and, in the air.
Yeah, small baby steps. Because one thing I would say is that it does take time. It takes time to transition from what you're used to and from what everyone around you is doing. Because for the most part, especially in churches, everything revolves around food. And so you go to church, there's donuts, there's all the pastries, and how do you resist eating all of the things the people around you are eating? Well, that's a journey. It takes time to really overcome those cravings and to learn, or I guess it's to appreciate why, the difference. Like for me, I've learned to understand and appreciate how I feel if I don't eat that. So, me, like everyone else, really crave the carbs and the sugar. And it's been such a journey to overcome those cravings and to really resist eating the things that I love, and a lot of people love those things as well. And it's like, it just takes a lot of time to learn that discipline. But I tell our patients, knowledge is really power in this arena, because the more you know about sugar, the less you're going to desire it, because you're going to understand that, eating that donut will bring bloating in a couple hours. And do you really want to be bloated? Do you really want your face to break out? Do you want to feel that way in 2 hours or not? Well, over time, you learn by trial and error, by eating the donuts and how you feel, that, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And so it's a gradual process that you learn over time. And it's not easy, because everyone around you is putting these things in front of you. When you go to family events, when you go to church, when you go to picnics, potlucks, they're all around us. Restaurants, going out to eat. It just takes a lot of time to learn it. But it's baby steps, like Scott said. It's like we drink the hot lemon water in the morning. We were talking about it today when we were eating a salad. It's like, I feel like people get discouraged because they feel it's too complicated. But if you just realize that over time you simplify it. Like for us, we do our hot lemon water in the morning. We eat one meal a day. And over time, when you learn to eat one meal a day, your stomach actually shrinks. So eating one meal a day becomes easier. But it's not easy in the beginning. So if you eat 4 meals a day, which most people do, then cut it down to 3, then cut it down to 2, so it's like baby steps, right? That's how it's been for me. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and it's been a long journey, but I'm so excited that I'm now in the position where I can share what I've learned just from my own journey and see people excited, because we have patients come back and they're drinking the gallon of water and they can't believe how they feel. The pain is gone and they're just excited. And that just makes me happy. So.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That is so true. Yeah. I love doing this with you, and that we can share our story.
Yeah.
And it's true. Carolyn made a good point, that sometimes it's discouraging. You're going to be tempted. And I think what it comes down to is having a plan. You have to plan before those things happen. Before you walk into the church with the donuts in front of you, you have to make a plan, and you have to make your why so strong that it's like, whether or not you're going on vacation, you want your bikini body or beach body. You're like, no, this is not worth it. That donut is not worth the sabotage that will bring me.
The cellulite on
the
my
cellulite, the swelling. It's just not worth it, right?
It's not worth it.
No, I'm sorry, you're not worth it. And that's what you have to do, is have this dialogue with yourself before you're faced with the donut or the soda or whatever it might be. And then you have to make a decision, how important is it to you? And it has to be really important. It has to be so important that you value yourself so much that you are not willing to go to that level, to the lower level of a donut or whatever it might be. It doesn't mean you're not going to be perfect. Sometimes you might make mistakes, but overall you're just going to focus on what matters most, which is feeling and looking great. Nothing is worth replacing that. Nothing.
Nothing feels better than skinny.
That's right.
No, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels.
That's right.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's right. And moments on the lips, forever on the hips.
Not too skinny, though. Not too skinny, just healthy and vibrant.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really is. And so we will teach you these habits through our seminars, through our podcast, through our school, our online programs, and so our workshops. We have, and then the book's coming out on October 1st of this year. So we have many ways that we will educate you. And the good news is you're not alone. And that's what this is about, is knowing that you have a team, that when you join our team, we are here to serve you and to be a part of your family. I mean, we consider you family, and that we're here to teach and inspire.
Yes, because our motivation is really just a love for people and knowing how it feels to feel bad and to see our parents and what they're experiencing. And we know what that's like. And so we're just really here to love people and help people understand that they can overcome the things that they're experiencing. So it's really exciting.
It is exciting. That's true. And, it's it really comes down to dis-ease. It's just a stressful pain to be in pain, not to be able to move, not to be able to sleep,
not to be able to bend over.
Mobility, lack of mobility. It's just so debilitating. It's really not you can't be happy. It's not a happy life.
No.
And so really health is happiness.
True.
It really is. It's the abundant life, which leads us to our intro, and our motto is really to inspire people to live the abundant life. And we are just grateful to be able to bring this podcast to you and look forward to sharing many other podcasts with you in the future.
Many other habits.
That's right, many other habits. So stay tuned for our exciting episodes forthcoming, and know that this is sponsored by the Sommer's Health and Wellness Center, the Scott and Carolyn podcast show. Thank you, mahalo, and aloha.